to be joined by Yossi Stepansky, a historian, archaeologist, and resident of Sfat, and we're here at the Beit Hameiri Museum, a building with a lot of history. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Emily.
So first tell us where we are and why this museum itself, the building and the museum, is a significant part of the historical context of the city of Sfat.
Okay, this building, an old building, right? The cellars go back maybe 400 or 500 years. The upper part, after the earthquake of 1837, was renovated by Hameiri. He passed away only at the age of 55.
Wow.
And he did a lot of work. He was a very famous journalist here in Israel.
Really?
And he took this building, renovated it, and made it into the beautiful building it is today, and really the only museum showing Tzfat from the last 200 years.
It is beautiful, and we really, feel like we're, in a piece of history, and you can tell it's different than the way you feel in Jerusalem and other places. Tell us kind of the story of life, for those people living here, in rooms that look like this.
Okay, people lived here. There was also a school upstairs, but there were also times of crisis, like World War I. When the school closed down, there were plagues then also. Even in the 16th century, okay, the Ari Rabbi Yitzchak Luria died in a plague, okay,
wow,
at the age of 38, 39. So there were plagues, there was hunger, there were times of crisis, but the Jewish
and
community...
even earthquakes, huh?
Of course, that year we have 3 earthquakes in 1759, 2, and the great earthquake of January 1st, 1837, when 1,500 Jews perished.
Wow.
There was only about 4,000 or 5,000 Jews in Tzfat, 500 more in Tveria, besides the wounded. So that was a great calamity. But the people of Tzfat, the Jews of Tzfat, survived on. And maybe one of the biggest surprises, even for me as an historian, was to find out that even after the earthquake, especially the second half of the 19th century, the Jewish community still bloomed.
So there's evidence of 400, 500 years. How do you recognize the graves to know when it was? Did they write dates on the gravestones, especially with all these earthquakes?
The Jewish cemetery here is the second biggest one in all of Israel after the Mount of Olives. Mm-hmm. We estimate that there are about 40,000 graves. My research is on the oldest epitaphs, and so far I've recorded 130 of them.
Wow.
Including the oldest one so far from 1482, which is before the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. Okay, and tens from the 16th century. We have people we didn't know about before. We have women. We have famous people from famous families. The sister of Rabbi Chaim Vital, the Pinto family, the Benvenisti family, mm-hmm, Hanassi family, mm-hmm, Sorogon family, El Ghazi family, Ashkenazim. Then even we have some Ashkenazim then.
Wow.
But most of them were Sephardim.
Now, given these families that, there's a whole history, that's a whole other topic, but did they know, inherently that Sfat was a place to come when the Nazis and the Benvenistis were planning, trying to get to the land of Israel? Did they know this was, did they just
First
know
of all,
from...
that's a great question.
Like from Kabbalah, did they know this is where it had to be? Because they could have gone anywhere.
First of all, we're trying to understand, maybe some of these people didn't live in Tzfat. Their bones were brought to Tzfat, mm-hmm, okay? Like, I personally think, mm-hmm, the bones of the wife of Rabbi Yosef Mitorani, who was one of the chief rabbis of Turkey in the early 17th century, mm-hmm, his wife. He himself was brought here because he was born in Tzfat, and his wife came after. She was Gracia. So we have also other people being brought here. We have Benjamin Italiano from Italy. We have other Italians. We have a Rosh Yeshiva, the head of a Torah Academy we didn't know about here in Tzfat.
So it's believed that a lot of these were just literally bones being, like a lifelong journey to get to the land of Israel, and we know how important that was, is of being buried in Israel.
The next generation of scholars will take the list of 130, these 130, and they'll do research on them. They try to identify each one of them. And that's still a lot of research to be done. We still have to draw all the epitaphs. Most of them are photographed. I'm worried about their preservation.
Right.
Because
We just have to
if
pray
there
there's not another earthquake.
That's right, or but that preservation under the elements.
Right.
And that's a problem that we have to solve also.
Are there any kind of interesting little insights you could tell us about, the 19th century spot?
Sure. First of all, my family was already here in the early 19th century in Sfat and in Tveria, Hasidim that came from Eastern Europe, and the great earthquake. I hear from my grandfather, who was born in 1896, stories about the earthquake in 1837 as if he was part of the earthquake.
Wow.
Okay? So that's really part of the heritage of Tzfat. And the people of Tzfat, the Jews of Tzfat, didn't leave, or some did leave, but there was still a nucleus of Jews staying here. And my surprise, a big surprise for me, recording synagogues in Tzfat. I made a research project recording all the Ashkenazi, the European Sunni synagogues in Tzfat in the 19th century. I made a list of 75. And we didn't know how many there were. 15 of them are still standing and functioning. But in the second half of the 19th century, a few thousand Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, came. The Sephardi, Spanish descent Jews, were here already. They stayed put. The Ashkenazi European Jews could go back and forth, different European countries. Austria-Hungary then was an empire with friendly with the Turks, who were the rulers of the land.
Right.
So they came and went. And they built many little synagogues, shtiblach, many little synagogues. And that was a surprise for me because some of them aren't here anymore. I just know about them. So that's also an important thing to mention. And then came World War I. And that's when a downhill began until 1948. 1,200 Jews were left here. And still Tzfat was liberated, but that's a whole different story.
Right, wow. It's endlessly interesting. Thank you. You're such a fountain of knowledge. Thank you so much, and appreciate your time, and we'll see you again very soon.
Okay.